Brightline is a fantastic train. Honestly, it's the best passenger rail experience I've had in the United States, and it is, without a doubt, the best way to travel up and down Eastern Florida. But the fact that this train exists as a privately owned and operated service tells us a lot about the problems with American passenger rail and why it's so difficult to live up to European standards. In this video, I'm going to take you along with me on my recent Brightline journey, discuss what I liked and what needs to improve, and then use my experience to draw some conclusions about intercity passenger rail travel in North America. Let's get started. First things first, a little background. Brightline is the only private intercity passenger railroad in the United States, so it definitely feels a lot different than pretty much anything else. Planning and development started in 2012 by a Florida real estate firm, followed by construction in 2014, and then the first service beginning in 2018 between Miami and West Palm Beach, Florida. A few branding flip-flops later, as well as a brief pause in service due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Brightline has been serving the Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach trio with solid ridership in its so-called Phase 1 service. There's a whole lot more planned for Brightline though. In addition to new stations coming soon along the existing route at Boca Raton and Aventura, a 170-mile extension to Orlando is almost complete and will mark the beginning of Brightline's Phase 2 service. Phase 3 is intended to be a future connection to Disney World and Tampa, and while construction has not yet started, I feel optimistic about this planned extension. Now, my itinerary in Florida was kind of a perfect use case for Brightline. I was visiting a family member in West Palm Beach, but the closest direct flights from my home city of Raleigh were to Fort Lauderdale. I didn't really want to rent a car either, so the train just made the most sense. Leaving the airport, I was faced with a task that is actually a very important and interesting problem that Brightline has: getting people to and from its stations. This might be less of a problem in Miami, but Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach are very car-oriented, very sprawled cities. If you can't walk to the stations or take public transit, Brightline might just have you covered. With your ticket, you can book ahead of time a private ride to or from the station in an electric car or a carpool van. They'll go anywhere within a 5-mile radius from the station, and best of all, it's free, though the language on the website indicates that may not last forever. In any case, I think it's a really nice touch and a great service for the very car-dependent urban landscapes of East Florida. Another option, for a slightly lesser distance, would be the Bright Bikes you'll find outside of the West Palm Beach station, which is like a traditional bike share that I thought was super cool. Of course, there are also parking decks at the Brightline stations that are free for passengers, so if you're renting a car or live in the area, that is also an option that might unfortunately be the most convenient. I'm generally not a huge park and ride person, but if it ultimately eliminates a long intercity car trip, I guess that's still a win for the planet. Now let's talk about the stations. The stations themselves are probably my favorite part of the entire Brightline experience. I knew going in that people thought they were pretty great, but I was kind of blown away by the whole experience. It was extremely clean and attractive from the start, and once you go upstairs to the waiting area, there was a minimal security check that added a feeling of safety without being intrusive whatsoever. Before entering the seating lounge, you'll notice a cocktail bar and a self-checkout store for snacks and travel essentials, which was super cool. The lounge itself was split up into 2 sections, one for everybody and one for premium ticket holders, of which I was one. To enter the premium lounge, you simply scan your ticket on the turnstile and head on in. The premium lounge had snacks, coffee, water, and plenty of quality seating. My favorite part though was the free and unlimited selection of wine, beer, and champagne from this dispenser. After a long day of traveling, this was a super nice touch. The entire lounge though, even for coach tickets, felt like a really high quality and well thought out space that was a phenomenal area to wait for your train in. The bathrooms were super clean and the staff was extremely friendly and helpful. The only downside I could really think of would be the music. I liked it, but I could see it being a little bit loud if you were trying to really concentrate. But overall, and with the premium ticket especially, you really feel like you're treated like royalty from the very beginning. There is a helpful information display in the lounge that shows you when your train is arriving and on what track. My train was right on time, and an announcement over the speakers gives you several minutes to get downstairs to the platform. You need to be careful though, because in order to ensure timely service, the trains are only stopped for maybe 2 minutes at maximum. The staff downstairs waiting by the train during its arrival were also extremely professional and helpful with passengers boarding and alighting the train. Now that I've boarded the train, there's a few other meta points I'd like to make about the Brightline service as a whole. It isn't particularly fast at a 79 miles per hour top speed, but that does match the speed of almost every Amtrak route, so I won't knock it here. There's also just a pretty continuous urban sprawl from Miami to West Palm Beach, which includes an abundance of grade crossings, thus limiting the top speed. This has unfortunately led to many accidents involving Brightline. This is not the fault of the train, as so many news outlets probably frame it to be, but rather lots of folks trying to drive around railroad crossing gates thinking they can beat the train, which, although sad and unfortunate, is just a stupid prize for a stupid game. In the defense of the Florida people, the existing commuter rail on the corridor, Tri-Rail, is quite slow in comparison, so I expect that as time goes on, crashes will decrease. Of course, eventually I would love to see a full grade separation for speed and safety reasons. Even at 79 miles per hour though, the trip really flies by at only 1 hour and 12 minutes from Miami to West Palm, which should actually beat driving times during most hours of the day. The planned section from West Palm Beach to Orlando International Airport will then travel up to 125 miles per hour, as that section is being mostly built from scratch in the I-95 right-of-way. The trip time after the completion of the Orlando extension will then be about 3 hours, which is very competitive with drive times. The best part of the Brightline service though, in my opinion, is the frequency. A train departs from every station about once an hour, which is fantastic for North American passenger rail. They also run until around midnight, which was essential for my journey since my flight to Fort Lauderdale was significantly delayed. This just gives folks a lot of flexibility on when they want to travel, and I think this is a big reason why ridership numbers have been as strong as they are. As demand grows when future extensions open, maybe 30-minute service, at least during peak hours, could be a possibility. After waiting around in the beautiful and modern station, I had really high expectations for the train itself, and it did not disappoint. The Siemens Venture rolling stock was slick, quiet, and reasonably comfortable. To me, this is absolutely the closest to European-style passenger rail in the United States. While the new Amtrak Venture cars will be quite similar and also a big improvement, Brightline will definitely always feel like a more premium service, with the train sets really dressed up to match. I can't speak for Coach, but I really did enjoy my time on the train in the premium section. Best of all was the service. More free snacks and drinks from the awesome Brightline attendant. I paid $27 for my 40-minute journey, which is certainly expensive, especially in comparison to train travel abroad. That said, it was a premium ticket from a private rail company on a service that is definitely intended to cater more to vacationers and inner-city business travelers than your average commuter, so I get it. Likewise, I definitely 100% drank my ticket's value in alcohol, so I really felt like it was a good value for the service and treatment provided. Overall, I have a few thoughts. First up is public versus private rail. To be frank, I'm of the strong belief that passenger rail should really be treated like a utility that doesn't need to make a profit, just like in the same way that roads are a public amenity that don't pay for themselves. I think that the expectation of profitability on Amtrak, particularly by transit skeptics, is really one of the core reasons why it just doesn't live up to its potential, or even that of rail service in many other significantly less wealthy corners of the world. Not to mention, if we could expand service and improve speeds and frequencies, the revenue would most certainly follow. But the funding issue and myriad other obstacles have left us with an overall inadequate national rail system, and that's just how it is for now. So in comes private rail, filling the gaps in places like Florida that should have already been well served by Amtrak but aren't. And for that reason, I have mixed feelings. Something is better than nothing, and Brightline is ultimately doing a good job getting folks out of their cars and onto a more climate-friendly alternative. Private rail lines also operate with great success in conjunction with state-owned operators in many rail-friendly countries of the world like Japan and Italy. That said, while I think Brightline is great now, the decisions of the operating company will ultimately be guided by its profits, and that could lead to problems in the future. The UK, for example, has attempted some rail privatization experiments that went poorly to say the least. But the infrastructure that Brightline has built will hopefully stay, and eventually I would love to see Amtrak, of course provided that it sees a successful modernization, take over operations and integrate it with the rest of their network. I suspect then that things like grade separation and electrification could be on the table, whereas now they most certainly aren't due to cost and profitability concerns. I feel generally the same about Brightline West and other private ventures such as the proposed Texas Central high-speed rail line. Something is better than nothing, but it's disappointing that high-quality state or federally owned services are not already operating on these corridors. Another takeaway I have is that Brightline definitely proves something about the demand for frequent, high-quality passenger rail in the United States. Aside from maybe Miami, this part of Florida is supremely sprawled and car dependent. If we want to talk car culture, this place is pretty close to ground zero. Yet, Brightline has thus far been a pretty great success, and the company is moving rapidly with some impressive expansion plans. If that is true of a place like this, imagine where else could benefit from hourly service on new, high-quality train sets. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and personally, I'd love to see our regional train take some hints from Brightline. Amtrak's Piedmont train, which I've already made a video on, is honestly pretty alright, but it does not run nearly as frequently as it should, with only 4 round trips per day. Additionally, the rolling stock is ancient, using refurbished cars that are nearly 80 years old. The state of North Carolina has done a great job with the stations along the way, but there is so much demand for this train just waiting to be unlocked. Let me know in the comments if this type of regional/intercity rail would benefit your own city. In conclusion, Brightline is a fantastic service that beats driving or flying any day of the week. If you need to get around between the cities it operates in, I could not recommend it more. Though, while I think the current prices are plenty reasonable for the quality it provides, I don't think it really fills the role of an affordable public transit backbone that can reduce everyday car dependency along Florida's East Coast, but rather a more luxury-oriented travel alternative for vacation goers and business travelers. In a perfect world, Brightline probably wouldn't even exist. This area should have already been well served by public passenger rail and not just a commuter service like Tri-Rail. That said, I believe wholeheartedly that its existence is a clear net positive for the state of Florida. I'm super excited for the future expansions to open. It is, without a doubt, the best passenger rail experience currently available in North America. Let me know what you think in the comments, and thanks for watching.